To understand how we got ourselves to the position where we're eating diets that make us unhealthy, we need to step back in time and think about the history, prehistory, and evolution of our species. This enables us to get a view from outside of the world that we've come to regard as normal and see from a broader perspective just how abnormal it really is. So let's start by thinking about the environments where our ancestors evolved. This is important because it's those environments to which our physiology and behavior are adapted. For this reason, knowing how our ancestors lived can help to understand what nutrition we need, what's gone wrong with our modern diet, and how it is that we've come to put our immense cultural power, science, agriculture, and technology to the disservice of making ourselves unhealthy. This isn't rocket science. We use the same simple logic every day. For example, we pay special attention to whether our vehicles are designed to run off diesel or unleaded petrol. We do this because if we get it wrong, the car won't work or it could even be damaged. The evolutionary approach to human health is similar, except in this case we think about our bodies being adapted rather than designed. But this amounts to the same thing. Adaptation is the evolutionary process through which biological things are designed to do what they do. And just as filling a diesel car with petrol results in problems, so too does filling our bodies with diets they are not designed to eat. So how did our prehistoric ancestors eat? Without grocery stores, restaurants, packaged foods, or even farms, they lived by hunting animals and gathering wild plants. Knowing this doesn't in itself help very much because we can't revert to hunter-gatherer diets even if we wanted to. There are far too many of us and the natural environment is already way too depleted to support this. But what we can do is use our knowledge of the nutritional composition of foods that were hunted and gathered to help understand how the nutritional balance of our diets has changed compared with hunter-gatherer diets. If we do this, we see a number of ways in which prehistoric diets differed from modern diets. Among the most important of these is that foods with high levels of fats, and especially the carbohydrates, sugar and starch, were scarce compared with the protein-rich foods such as meat from wild animals. And most of the foods that did contain sugars, starch or oils, such as wild fruits, vegetables and nuts, also contained high levels of fiber, which dilutes these nutrients. Hunter-gatherer diets were therefore high in protein relative to fats and carbs compared with modern diets, and also had high concentrations of other nutrients, including fiber, vitamins, and minerals. To succeed in such environments where easy energy from fats and carbs was scarce, humans evolved a fondness for sweet and fatty foods with little energy-diluting fiber. This liking motivated us to make the most of high-energy foods if the opportunity arose, to eat lots of ripe fruits, honey, or fatty parts of animals wherever possible. We also evolved a physiology to efficiently store energy as body fat and an aversion for unnecessarily using those stores. In other words, a tendency for laziness. A biology that targeted the intake and storage of energy and avoided unnecessarily using it was beneficial in our ancestral environments because it helped to ensure that we had the fuel reserves to survive and reproduce even during lean periods. And we had little need to evolve mechanisms that limit the accumulation of harmful levels of body fat because the environment took good care of that. Fats and carbs were too scarce and the daily demands for physical activity too high for obesity to be a risk. So what's changed? Our greatest asset as a species, our capacity for sophisticated culture, is from a dietary perspective also our greatest downfall. Nutritionally, we're victims of our own success. Complex cultures enabled humans to indulge their fondness for energy-dense foods and reduced physical activity through altering our environment. So first came agriculture, which massively increased the availability of carbohydrates in the form of grains and domesticated fruits, and of fats from farmed animals and some fruits and seeds. Agriculture also provided domesticated working animals such as horses and oxen, which could save us energy by laboring for us. Then came industrialization and the technology to concentrate fats and energy-producing carbohydrates in bulk by removing them from fiber and other substances that dilute their concentration in foods. This changed the nature of the meals we eat because it enables us to easily alter their composition using isolated nutrients such as starch, fats, and sugars. Industrialization also provided further opportunity to reduce physical activity through mechanized transport and other labor-saving technologies. With time, a new kind of food was developed, which had never been eaten by our ancestors or any other species, called ultra-processed foods. These are manufactured mainly from industrial ingredients such as refined sugars, starch, fats, and salt, rather than from whole foods, and are high in energy and low in non-energetic nutrients and fiber. Examples include crisps, ice cream, donuts, pizza, and biscuits. Industrially produced processed foods are designed and engineered to serve one purpose, and that is high sales. To achieve this, they're made to be tasty, cheap, and convenient. And we've taken the bait. Within a few generations, processed foods have become a new human staple, adding to our diet's intakes of salt, fat, sugar, and starch never before experienced in our history, and depriving us of the fiber, vitamins, and minerals to which our bodies are adapted. Finally, globalization, including the digital revolution, has ensured that these cultural changes have spread rapidly across the world, together with their travel companions, obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. Through agriculture, industrialization, and globalization, we've created a world in which the availability, quality, and distribution of foods is no longer determined mainly by ecology or what's available naturally in our environments, but rather by technology and economics. Foods are now farmed, processed, and manufactured to compete for consumer dollars, and many do this by catering for basic human preferences such as sweetness and fattiness, regardless of the consequences for our health. So unlike our ancestral environments, where tastiness was a good guide to healthiness, for example, eating energy-rich foods helped avoid life-threatening energy shortages, now the link between tastiness and health is much more tenuous. Eating has become less about nutrition and health and more about pleasure and profit, and this poses significant risks to health. Some people believe that problems with modern diets will be solved if we eat like our ancestors did, and this is exactly what many people are attempting to do through popular high-protein diets like the paleo diet. But is this a good idea? It is and it isn't. The benefit is that, like most popular diets, paleo-type diets eliminate highly processed, carb-rich foods and in this way deal with one of the main causes of obesity. Unfortunately, they also introduce health problems of their own. If we remove sugars and starch from our diets, then we will need to replace them with something else, and this something else turns out to be fat and protein. Fat, particularly saturated animal fats, of which there's plenty in the paleo-type diets, and industrially engineered trans fats are associated with increased risk of heart disease and stroke. And new evidence suggests that too much dietary protein, particularly animal-derived protein, also of which there's plenty in these diets, accelerates the onset of aging and associated diseases, including some cancers. There are several explanations for why paleo-type diets are no longer the best option for humans, of which I'll mention one. That is that evolution did not stop with the transition to agriculture, but our species continued to adapt in important ways to the increased levels of carbohydrate that farming made available. For example, in most animals, the ability to digest lactose, which is the carbohydrate in milk, is lost after weaning. But human populations with a history of dairy farming have evolved the ability to digest lactose throughout their lifetimes. There are also genes involved in starch digestion that have evolved in humans since the origin of agriculture. We should therefore think of ourselves as partly adapted to hunter-gatherer diets and partly to agricultural diets. And in other respects, we still have adaptations reflecting our pre-human ancestry as primates foraging in trees. We therefore have a complex combination of nutritional adaptations derived from various stages in our evolutionary history, and it's challenging to decide based on that which diets modern humans are adapted to. A simpler way of approaching the issue is to ask what we are not adapted to, and the answer to this is clear: highly processed foods. Compared with agriculture, to which we've been exposed for hundreds of generations, ultra-processed foods have formed a significant part of our diet only for the past 2 generations, the same period that obesity became a problem. This is not nearly enough time for us to adapt to these strange foods. Practically, what all of this means is that we should eat diets that have moderate levels of protein, fat, and carbohydrates, and that these nutrients should be obtained mostly from minimally processed, whole, fresh foods. This will help us avoid dangerous excesses of any one of these nutrients and at the same time ensure that we have enough vitamins, minerals, and fiber. An added benefit of this approach to eating is that it's exactly what most dietary guidelines and professional dietitians recommend. There's therefore a wealth of information to help you follow it and also scientific evidence confirming its benefits.